Hey, deserving listeners, 90-Day Fiancé, The Other Way, the episode from this week. Let's watch. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. As I always say, everything that I say is completely speculative based on very little information, so keep that in mind. Let's watch.
Закончим эти отношения. Продолжай общаться со своими девушками.
All right, interesting. So she is kind of breaking up, but she's phrasing it in a way that people will usually phrase it when they're not really serious about breaking up. It's more of a bid for, I don't know, some kind of attention or love from the other person. You know, we might as well just end the relationship. Instead, usually when people say that, it's fishing, and it's not a bad thing to do. It's not, especially if you're really triggered. What they're hoping for is that the Stevens of the world will say, "Oh no, I don't want that to happen," you know, because I'm guessing she feels like maybe he doesn't really want to be with her. I think that's a big, concern of hers. Or maybe she is breaking up with him, and this will end. But I would predict that this isn't the end. Maybe it'll end later, but I would predict this isn't because of the way that she talks. She talks like she is very much in love with him, and and he's being nice. He's listening. He's being with her. So I'm guessing they'll get through this, even though I'm guessing from the comments, a lot of people are like, "Alina, leave, get out."
Мне кажется, я просто зря трачу время.
We're both very emotionally charged, and I don't want to make any rash decisions. Rash means...
I know what I mean.
Alina, I want to make things work with you. I could delete my social media. How about we do that right now?
This focus on social media, I find aggravating. Fine, delete the social, get that over with. Then let's go on to the more important things, like stop lying, have remorse, apologize, understand what you did. Like let's just, okay, fine, get rid of the social media, and then you can actually work on recovery from the lying.
Хорошо. Поделил.
Отлично. So after deleting your social media, you think I can immediately trust you and be happy?
No, I don't think that. I don't think that at all. But Alina, that was your whole focus. So, I get where she's coming from, but okay, so now maybe they'll get into actually infidelity recovery or lying recovery.
I think it's a good step in the right direction, don't you?
Yeah, that you should make long time ago.
Is it all right if I take you out for some ice cream? Let's go. That'll be good.
So on one, I'm always using this as a jumping off point. If you are trying to get trust back from your partner, then being nice and, putting hands on and consensually and listening are all good things. But to, minimize the gravity of the situation by saying let's go get ice cream and or not really fully acknowledging what you did is not going to help.
I regret having dragged my feet this whole time. The social media isn't a huge deal, so I could have just deleted it and saved a lot of drama. And now I'm really worried that no matter how many promises I make, that it won't be enough for Alina and she won't forgive me.
So again, he doesn't seem to understand what is really happening. He's focusing on, I should have deleted social media before and everything would have been fine. No, that does not erase the trust violations that have been committed.
Oh, actually, can you grab my mask right there for me, baby? Luckily, before coming to Turkey, I prepared a bunch of gifts to give Alina at strategic moments when I feel they'll be most impactful, such as today. And hopefully that will cheer Alina up.
Again, it's nice to give gifts, and it's nice to have gestures, but maybe even in a moment like this. But until you acknowledge what you did and have remorse and have the full apology and the full introspection that you lay out for your partner, I think it's going to be received poorly, because it seems like the way he's treating it, he's like, well, yeah, I it's sort of like, what's something else that you do to a partner that's much less like you promised that you would make dinner for them and you just didn't do it. You did something else that was self-indulgent, and someone comes home and they're like, oh, you promised you're going to make dinner for, or maybe better, you promised date night or something. You're like, okay, we'll definitely have date night on Friday night. And then Friday night comes along and you're just gone. You don't even show up. And you're like, oh yeah, I'm sorry. But and then you give a gift. He's treating it like that instead of this, what looks to be the tip of the iceberg of ongoing infidelity, or at least lying conveniently to serve himself.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Hey, baby. You're the most beautiful flower. All right, let's get some ice cream. Hello. 1 scoop watermelon, 1 scoop cherry. Awesome.
Now, I will hold out for the possibility that he has learned his lesson and that they get married and he, for the most part, is a trustworthy partner for the rest of their relationship. It's possible. It's very common for the public anyway to look at a situation like this and say, like, well, once a cheater, always a cheater, once a liar, always a liar. And although it is true that one can predict future behavior based on past behavior to some extent, but it also is true that people can change, people can learn. All of us have done bad things in the past, some along these lines, and we might have learned. We were, oh, okay, well, that was wrong of me to do that, and so I should be more considerate of other people's feelings. And so maybe that will happen. I don't know why I'm thinking about. I guess I'm just predicting that they're going to stay together. And I'm trying to look on the bright side.
And I'm sorry that I took so long to delete my social media.
The way you communicate with girls, it's unacceptable for me, so I want you to...
Break that habit?
Yes.
I promise.
Okay, good. So they're getting into it, but his response is still not commensurate to the situation. He's like, okay, yeah, I'll stop doing it. And that a lot of people on the show will do that when they're caught on something, or even when they just come forward and say, I'm sorry I did this. They're almost never, if ever, the person who commits the transgression says, I've thought a lot about it. I went to therapy for 10 weeks and I really figured out why I was doing those things, because it's kind of weird. Like, why would I do that? It's really shooting myself in the foot. And here's why I did that. And here's my path on recovery, so that I can fix those parts of me or those habits, so that I don't do those things again. Because people, when they do stuff like that, it's usually something deep about who they are. For him, it's like it's at least it looks like he wants to be with Alina. So why would he be flirting with Masha while he's with Alina, this random woman on the internet that lives halfway across the world, someone that in all likelihood he would never come into contact with? Why would he be flirting with her? Like, something's going on there with his personality. And for him just to be like, let's get ice cream, and yeah, I promise I'll never do it again, I wouldn't believe him.
And there's a little letter that I wrote. Dear Alina, you have so much light inside of you and so much goodness that at first sight I knew that all my dreams and hope I had about you while we were talking over the phone would come true. You have loved me.
All right, so he is giving her a gift, a flowery Book of Mormon. All right, it's consistent with what he has said. He wants to live the life of Mormon. He wants her to be Mormon, and she is appreciating the gift and the things that he's saying. I wonder if people will say that he's love bombing her because of this. That's not how I would categorize it. It could be. So a lot of the discourse and I've talked about this before, a lot of the discourse on the internet basically assumes that people like Stephen are evil and they're operating from an evil place, and they know that they're messing with other people and they're manipulative, and they wake up in the morning and they're like, ha ha ha, how can I like trick these people? I'm going to trick her. I'm going to get her. I'm going to ruin her. You know, it's this very black and white way of looking at things, very like almost cartoonish, like the sort of villain that you'd find in a cartoon made by Disney. And although those people do exist, but they're extremely rare. It's possible that Stephen is one of those people. It's possible Alina is one of those people, but there's not a lot of evidence of it. Those kinds of people have train wrecks of a life, by the way. They usually end up in prison. But so the gift giving, if people are, so just to remind ourselves about what love bombing is, it's almost always involuntary, and it is done by someone that is very, very in love, and they are either immature or desperate for closeness. And so when they find a little bit of closeness, they're just like, oh my goodness, like, please stay with me. I feel so good. I've never felt this good before. My dogs are barking. And so they will say, I love you. Let's move in together. Let's be together forever. You're the best ever. I just want to see you all the time. I don't want any minute of any day to not be, to be apart from you. And it actually is coming from a legitimate place. The person isn't love bombing in a manipulative, harmful way. They're doing it in a way of just like, oh my God, I have so much feeling for you. Sometimes, not all the time, but because I've never had it in the past. And so now that I have it, I just want it all the time. And then because the person has those relational traumas that led them to feel so abandoned and hurt, that they're easily triggered. And so they're loving because they're desperate. Like, oh my goodness, I finally found someone. And they really cling, and they're just like, I don't want to waste any second. I found you. And then because of the things that led to the desperation also leads to them being easily hurt. And then you hurt their feelings inadvertently, or the person sort of sees hurt when it's not actually there. And then they get very, very hurt, and then they get very, very angry, and they might push you away, or they might get really cold, or they might even become abusive to you. And so that's what love bombing is. This is him just giving her a gift he was planning on giving her, and what looks to be him not really understanding how he impacts other people, which we don't actually know where that comes from. Is it youth? Is it lack of experience? Is it narcissism? Is it just general privilege and self-centeredness? I can't know from the data that we've seen.
For who I really am, and you made me a better person. I call you my moonlight because you reflect the light and love that I want in my life. I want you to be happy forever. For that reason.
I mean, her face, it's like, I mean, have you ever seen someone on this show so in love? I mean, she's doomed. And so what's going on? We don't know. And I know a lot of people in the comments really hate Stephen. It's just like, there's something triggering about Stephen to a lot of people, which I'm not exactly sure why. Some people, I get why they trigger people, but I think Stephen somehow I think he triggers some kind of disgust. I feel there's a lot of disgust in people when they watch Stephen. There's a lot of like just visceral, just rejection and disgust and anger at him. And for some of the things that he's done, I think that is justified, but I think people don't even like the way that he moves or talks or eats snacks or whatever. But anyway, but we don't really know the real Stephen. And so, maybe Alina sees the full Stephen, and there's a lot to love. And so she is in love with him.
I am giving you this Book of Mormon so we can strengthen our testimonies together. You are my moonlight. Alina, I love you. Your boy, Stevushka.
And as I've been saying before, she's quite young. She's 20, I believe. And there's indications that she's never had a love relationship before. This could be her first love. So her lack of wisdom and her naivete can lead her to have a distorted view of the compatibilities in the relationship, you know? And so it seems like that's a factor that for a lot of people, they would say, well, let's pump the brakes here. I'm seeing some things, or break up with him. You know, she's all in because she seems to love him a lot. Now, it's interesting because when we don't like someone, if you don't like Steven, then you think that Alina's being tricked or she's deluded or naive. If you liked Steven, which I don't know anyone who does, then you would say, well, of course she, you know, think of Kenny and Armando, right? They're in love with each other. And when you see their love, because you like Kenny and Armando, you're like, oh, look, it's love. It's true love. It's good love. And when we see Steve and Alina, we're like, that's bad love because I don't want that love. But, you know, love is love.
Thank you so much.
I haven't dated so many people besides like Steven. Even though he hurt me, he still shows that he loves me and makes me feel special more than anyone else.
Okay, so she is saying, I haven't dated much outside of Steven. So we're getting some confirmation of that, which seems to be the case based on, I don't know, just her demeanor. And then she says that he makes me feel special. And again, if you just divorce yourself from Steven, if you just heard a story about a guy who but was nice and said a lot of nice things, a lot of romantic things, and was kind and patient, you'd say, oh, you know, sounds like a good guy. So I think that the reason why I'm saying these things is I feel I need to defend Alina's love for him, that it's easy from the outside to be like, she's deluded, he's a gaslighter, she's stupid, you know, instead of, you know, because I guess this stems from this ageism that I see in society sometimes, even among my colleagues, when we'd be treating a teenager, for example, they're, you know, 14 and they're in love, and the family and the therapists would be looking at the 14, it's like, you're not really in love, it's puppy love, you're a child. And I always found that to be ageist, that you would look at a 14-year-old and say, you know, I know better than you and your feelings are invalid, just based on your age and your experience level. Now, might they 20 years later look back and say, yeah, I wasn't really in love, but you know, it's quite a hubris thing to do, to, you know, it involves a lot of hubris to say that about someone. So as a policy, I try to say, look, if someone's in love, they're entitled to that and it's valid. You know, no love is more valid than any other love. You know what I mean? And so now we can point to situations where people fall in love with the wrong people. People fall in love with people who are self-destructive and destructive to them. So certainly that can happen, and maybe that's happening right now. But I feel that we should be careful about looking at Alina and saying that she's young and naive and her love isn't real. It doesn't mean she doesn't need guidance. It doesn't mean that she shouldn't get some wisdom from outside of the relationship, but it does mean that we should respect her and her feelings.
I accept your apologize.
Really?
Maybe I am forgiven easily, but I think it's not a bad thing because I come to Turkey to be committed with Steven, and I still believe in fairy tales, so I'm not giving up.
Okay, she's literally saying she believes in fairy tales. Again, which is fine, but it lends itself towards the hypothesis that she is seeing a mirage of a fairy tale instead of noticing what's really happening.
And then also, if you notice, on the front page, I left it blank, so that way next time we get in a fight, I can still write something else in here.
This also is evidence that they've had a lot of conversations about her converting to being Mormon, because if she weren't on board with that and he gave her this gift, she would say, I don't want this Book of Mormon. Why are you giving this to me? So it lends itself for us to understand that behind the scenes, there have been agreements between them that explain how they navigate, the coffee thing and the alcohol thing.
I wanna see you shine. I wanna feel your light. I want you in my life.
I mean, if this was any other couple, this would be a really sweet moment. But Alina seems to be really enjoying it. So, I don't know. What do we know? What do I know?
Probably the greatest achievement of my life, to propose to Alina. Even though sometimes I didn't make the smartest decisions, I'm really glad that I can have this opportunity to show her how much I love her.
I don't know. I mean, maybe there's a chance. Maybe with some introspection in the future, he can figure out what led to the behaviors in the past that could really harm his chances in a relationship with Alina. I don't know. Maybe there's some hope. Maybe what we saw was him growing up and learning. I don't know.
Will you marry me?
Wow. It's perfect.
We've seen a lot of proposals on the show, and some we're ambivalent about, some we're happy about. How do I feel about this one? I think that, I don't know, at some point, maybe last week, I would have been like, oh no, but I don't know, maybe they can learn, he can learn, he can, and like I said, look inward, figure out what's going on with him. I mean, they seem, really in love, and it's nice to see, at least from that angle.
I'm so happy that she said yes. I'm so happy that it's a surprise. We're engaged now, and we're engaged in a foreign country, and I love you.
Yes, I love you too.
All right. Well, I want to thank y'all for liking and subscribing and hitting the bell and commenting below. It's super nice of you, particularly the thumbs up. That really does help my self-esteem and let me know if I'm on the right track or not. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.